When it comes to the combination of race, class, and gender throughout time and its progression, many factors are taken into account. When taking those factors into account, we can see that throughout time, these three categories would often and still do share the same output, which is that there have been ups and downs in the progression of equality of race, class, and gender. Throughout the centuries, even with more progression happening every century, there's still plenty of work that needs to be done in order for everyone of every race, class, and gender to be fully equal to each other. Race has been a constant struggle throughout the United States of America. In the Virginia Slave Laws, created by the Grand Assembly, they define what makes a slave a slave. The definition changes over time and goes from being born of a Negro woman to just being born of a slave. As the years progress, the punishments for those slaves negatively progress. If a slave does anything wrong, their masters, who were of course most of the time white men, would be allowed to punish them how they see fit, which includes slaves being killed, and then the masters would be acquitted for murder. In Gordon Hudson's article, Race as a Social Construct, he talks about how the rules that are associated with being black change over time and depends on where in the world you are. Hudson states that in South Africa, if a person is half black and half white, they are considered colored and are of a higher social status than those who are just black. However, in the United States, they still follow the one-drop rule, which states that if they come from any amount of black ancestry, even if it's one person in their entire family tree, then they are considered black. Hudson made this and many other points in his article to support his statement that race is in fact a social construct. When it comes to the class system, things have also been a struggle to change. In Jacob Riis's How the Other Half Lived, there were these buildings called the tenement buildings in New York City. They're still found there today. Here, the lower working class lived in hard conditions. In his telling, he tells what it's like living in those conditions and how the upper half of society view those people. He states, "If it shall appear that the sufferings and the sins of the other half and the evil they breed are but as a just punishment upon the community that give it no other choice." This was how the upper half viewed the lower half, hence the other half. They lived in filth and ruin and in cramped spaces. Of course, discrimination against certain classes continued and affected more people as they entered the country seeking refuge. In Christopher Klein's article, When America Despised the Irish, the 19th Century Refugee Crisis, he states how refugees were coming to America due to famine in their own countries. There were about 2 million Irish refugees. They were also seen as poor and disease-ridden, just like the ones mentioned in Jacob Riis's articles. They were accused of bringing crime to the country and of being rapists. Last but not least, gender has also been a major issue throughout time, with women having to fight along each step of the way. Terry Snyder, author of Women, Race, and the Law in Early America, she talks about Native America. She states how when women would get kidnapped, they would normally be the only survivors because their captives would kill the men off. The women were then used for domestic work and for field work. even used for sexual and reproductive labor. She then goes on to state how in later centuries, when blacks were brought over to America, mostly the women also survived. As time went on and blacks fought for their freedom, sometimes women could not be free. This time, race would play a part on a woman's status of freedom and basic human rights. When compared to her white counterpart, a black woman would pay taxes while a white English woman would not have to. The laws that were put into place made it difficult for any woman, white or black, to fully be considered free. Time progressed, and so did the people. For many time, women fell behind the men in society, Some women decided that they had had enough and wanted to do something about it. A woman named Elizabeth Cady Stanton came forward and would be one of the many faces that would be synonymous with women's rights. In her speech, Address on Women's Rights, 1848, she addresses how men are always climbing the ladder, but women are not. Women are always inferior to men in society, yet they boast on how such a great progressive country the United States is. She compares the United States to England and says that a woman there has the right to vote and can hold office. She talks about how a woman can even hold a place of power, such as a throne. In this case, she's referring to Queen Victoria. Yet in America, women are but second-class citizens and are not yet equal. In short, America has gone through and will continue to go through many changes in order to accommodate everyone. Race, class, and gender are important factors in everyone's lives and plays heavily on where they are and how they are treated in society. Furthermore, society has a long ways to go to making sure that everyone of all races and classes and genders are treated equally in every way possible. It just takes a few people to stand up for what they believe in and to make a big difference. Okay, guys, these are all my sources. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something from it. Yay, we reached the end of the semester. Yeah.